Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to Roma Theory. I hope your week started in the best way possible. I highly doubt it did because of the result that we achieved yesterday away at Como. And yeah, I want to have a good debate today. You know me, Monday talks are I want to keep them. I want to keep them longer. I want to keep them more chatty. I want to answer to some questions. So this is your moment. Ask some questions that we can insert in the talking points. I do have a few talking points that I do want to center this video upon. But questions on our state, questions, whatever questions you want, pop them in the live chat as always. Because Mondays, I like to keep them a bit more chilled. Chilled is not the term I like to use right now. It really isn't because nothing is chilled. But let's try to analyze. I like analyzing. I think there are so many things that we need to say. There are so many talking points that we can insert in the current state of this football club that it will actually be hard to fit them all in one video. But as always, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe to the channel. This video is brought to you by Soccer Deal Shop. So if you scan that QR code and use code Roma at checkout, you will have a 10% discount on any product. They also have a flash deal which includes mystery boxes. Christmas is coming. I always give you the example because it's a good game. Mystery boxes with football kits in them. If you're playing Secret Santa with your friends, this is your moment to do it. They've got great quality kits. Scan that QR code or click the link in the description. And by using code ROMA, you'll have a 10% discount at the end. Right. The first talking point needs to be the players. The first talking point needs to be the players of this football club. The Fredkins yesterday spoke about a revolution. Angelo Mangiante reported yesterday evening after the game that the Fredkins were furious after yesterday's performance and that they stand with Ranieri 100% and that they want to carry out a revolution in January to eliminate the toxic elements of this football club and ultimately restart and kick away the cycle which had to be ended ages ago. This is the first thing which I will talk about today. The first thing which comes to my mind is, if the Fredkins are furious, have they ever thought of what the fans actually feel in what is the worst start to a Roma season in absolutely ages? Do they understand what they did? Do they understand what they are doing to this football club, which makes them so furious? Because being furious, you don't be furious. You don't wake up and you're furious. Furious comes with a process. Many little angry moments which you place them together, and you end up with an absolutely frenetic, furious moment. Well, my first question to them is, if you're furious, what do Roma fans feel? If you are mad at the current state of things, what do Roma fans feel? If you don't like the current situation, have you ever thought of what Roma fans live right now during this situation? We've got 16 points in 16 games. We've got a record of 1 point per game. I already said yesterday how this is a relegation form. I already said yesterday how if you don't wake up, you will be in very big danger in falling in the trap of relegation. Again, it feels like we were back from it because it feels like we were giving a sense of continuity to our results. But as I said yesterday, it's not 2 games which make a season. It's not the fact that you won against Lecce and against Braga which makes you go, right, now I can be more chilled because I won't get relegated. You basically lost points against all of the teams which are currently in the relegation zone or fighting with you to not get relegated, apart from Venezia. That is the state of things. So before looking at the table and going, we can achieve Conference League, top 8 is still possible, let's go all in the Europa League, let's go in the Coppa Italia. I think the first thing we need to do is get our shoes and remove the mud from beneath our shoes which is not allowing us to climb positions. I think the first thing we need to do, maybe, is look at ourselves in the mirror and go, what are we doing wrong? Look ourselves in the mirror and ask yourself, why did I lose more points? Why am I living this season? And maybe only then, once we or actually start grinding points back and don't fake grinding points, maybe we can look about getting 8th, getting Conference League, if you do want to get Conference League, getting in the other side of the table. Right now, there are other priorities at this football club. Whether you like to speak about them or not, it's the current state of things. The table says that we've got 16 points in 16 games. The records say that we've changed 3 managers this season. And that we've got a record of 1 point per game, which is in any other season and in any other competition a relegation form. What are we doing wrong? So, the first thing which I'll say is this. I read about the Fredkins being furious, the Fredkins revolution, revolutionizing everything. But, number one, I would say you came to it too late. And number two, I would say, if you're furious, have you ever thought of Roma fans? Of the fans who are living this mess of a season, brought to us by you. So, speaking about the players and speaking about this revolution that Mangiante has talked about today, that the Fredkins in a lot of newspaper articles have said that the Fredkins were furious with the team yesterday and that they've threatened a revolution starting in January. I have come to the conclusion after years, because it took me years, and it took me years because until a few years ago, I was very much one of those. I was young. It was my age for sure. I was player FC, until a few years ago. I was like, I love that player. Don't sell him. I've got a little fetish for that player. Don't sell him. Please don't sell him. After years, I have come to the conclusion that the only way this situation improves, and the only way we are better than this and admire for greater positions, is with a revolution. A revolution needs to take place. Now, whether this revolution happens in January, I highly doubt it, because you would need to sell a lot of players and you would need to find clubs in a restricted amount of time with players who earn a lot of money. So you need to find teams which are willing to offer that amount of money. In June, 90% of this team needs to go. 3 players I would keep, and 3 players I would center my revolution around. Miles Velar, Manu Kone, Nicola Pezzilli. All the rest can go and need to go. It's not a question of can they go or not, it's they need to go. The rest need to go. I'm a big fan of Paulo Dybala. Dybala's time at Roma is coming to an end in June. He needs to go. Pellegrini needs to go. Cristante needs to go. Mancini needs to go. Dovbyk needs to go. I would add Salamakers to the list, even though he's not one of our players. And I would probably also add Sule, because he's young and he needs time. The rest all need to go. All of them. No exceptions. No exceptions because I like him, because he's my friend, because I pay him less. No. All of these exceptions, you bring them and you throw them away. You need to come to a conclusion, and you need to clear out. We were speaking about clear outs ages ago, and it never happened. Because the problem is that the first game one of these players scores a goal or plays a good game, everybody starts going, no, keep him, no, keep him, no, keep him. So we will never get to a point where there will actually be a revolution. Okay? So we need to go hard line. Look at the season that we're living. I think if you don't act quick in clearing away the team in June, I'm not going to say January, because it's not feasibly possible to clear out everybody in January. In June, these months leading up to June, In June, 90% of this team needs to go. If you don't send 90% of this team away, there are risks that we repeat another season like this. You know, there are risks. There are very big risks. So what you need to do is acknowledge that you've been terrible in recent years. Acknowledge that what can save you in the future is a revolution. Restart from scrap. Restart from scrap. Kick the senators away. Kick the top of the group away to eliminate the toxic mood. So the toxic element with Pellegrini, Cristante and Mancini. Yes, even Mancini. Clear them and then clear the rest. And when I mean the rest in June, Dybala, even Paredes, and I'm a big fan of Paredes, they need to go. Because if we keep going, oh, he played a good game, no, I want to keep him, then he plays a bad game, and then, oh, no, he played a good game, we'll never get to a point where we will actually come to a revolution. So, we need it. Cycles end. Our cycle ended ages ago. But the problem that this board did not acknowledge is that the cycle had ended. This board and these owners failed to understand that the cycle ended and had to change when we lost that Budapest final. They insisted in keeping the core of this team like that, and these are the results. Cycles end in football. Mourinho's cycle had come to an end in Budapest. Mourinho had to resign for his good also after that Budapest final, because his cycle ended there. After that Budapest final, it was time to open a new cycle. But if Mourinho's cycle had ended in Budapest, so the players that were part of his cycle had to go. And we failed to do this because you were good at, look, you managed to kick Mourinho away, but you did not back this by kicking the players away. If you decide to kick away a manager, you also need to kick away his players, because cycles end in football, and this is what we don't understand, what this board didn't understand. Sebek, thank you very much for the super chat. Simo, this is for the Tottenham game. I really enjoyed it as for yesterday. Maybe it's time to let this season go and start a new next one. The Fredkin, I hope they sell the team. Thank you, mate. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much. I love the support that this community gets and has. We stick together even in these times. So thank you very much for your super chat. It means a lot, and glad you enjoyed the video and the London trip. I'm looking for a few other trips in January, but I haven't finalized anything. But thank you very much. So having said this, a revolution needs to take place. I also feel like a revolution is what Ranieri is asking for. I think Ranieri, because look, I think since Ranieri came, and since Ranieri knew and now knows that that he will stay here even longer and he will be part of this project and he will help constructing this team, I also feel like Ranieri wants to see a revolution. And I think a revolution is the best thing that can happen. It's the best thing that can happen at this football club right now. Because we've had great moments with these players. We've had terrible moments with these players. We've had fun. We've had moments of despair and moments of absolute incredible moments. But as everything in life, cycles come to an end. It's unsustainable to keep a love relationship going if both the two sides don't want it to continue. And this is exactly the same scenario. Exactly the same scenario. If you've got a relationship between two people, but it starts to become toxic, it's better to end it and start something new. This team is full of players that had to be kicked out after Budapest. Not kicked out, because we were very proud by them, but come to an agreement that they had to end it. Because I need to restart. I got to the peak of what I could have possibly done with these players, because you can't get anything better than a Europa League final with these players. That's the peak of the peaks that we could have achieved with these players. With how it ended, with the way we lost the final. From that final, we've never been the same. From that final, things had to drastically change, and they failed to drastically change. So the revolution that I would carry out is this. Now, another thing that I want to go back to is because I think looking at our past is something that we should never do, because the past is past. You can't change the past. You can only improve the present and ultimately change the future in the long term. But I think in moments like this, you need to trace the past. I think in moments like this, you need to look at the past and go, what were my mistakes in the past that made me like this? What did I do in the past few months, that ultimately made me end like this? Okay. And I think the first big mistake, people will argue it's Mourinho being sacked. I can buy you the argument. I was a very big Mourinho fan. I'm still a very big Mourinho fan. I love that man to bits. But I do think the Mourinho cycle was done. So even though the timing of the Mourinho sacking was wrong, I agree. He shouldn't have been sacked in January. He should have ended the season. I agree. But at the end of that season, Mourinho had to change. So even today, the 16th of December 2024, Mourinho would never have been here. Because if he hadn't been sacked the 16th of January, they wouldn't have extended his contract. So the mistake that we made is confirming De Rossi. That's the first mistake. To then sack him after 4 games. And the biggest, then of course appointing Juric to replace him. Vabbè, not everybody knows that. But I think a mistake which not many people look at, which I think is drastically important when analysing this season, is the total disaster of the summer transfer window. An absolute disastrous summer transfer window. Disastrous summer transfer window. The summer window is why we're here right now. The confusion, the lack of programming, the lack of organization, the lack of making decisions, absolutely everything. Everything. Okay? The mistake that you made in the first place was confirming De Rossi. I'm the first one to say that De Rossi shouldn't have been confirmed. As of now, using hindsight, of course, because back then we were all going, De Rossi needs to be confirmed. If you confirm De Rossi, which you did, I respect the decision. You made a decision. You made a strong decision. But if you confirm De Rossi, you don't sack him after 4 games. If you confirm De Rossi, you stick with him for 3 years. If you don't like De Rossi, because this is ultimately why you sacked him, because you don't think he was good enough, then you should have never confirmed him in the first place. So it's this, it's this acting with the wave of positivism that ultimately made us and brought us to where we are now, okay? I'm going to answer questions in a second. I'm just going to end this this little bit. Hit the like button, by the way, in the meantime, if you haven't already. So, the transfer window. Number one, you didn't back De Rossi in it. You backed De Rossi in probably 2 players that you bought. But a transfer window where you spend 120 million, you've got 120 million to spend, a lot of money. You want to invest, you want to grow, you want to start building and planting the roots of a long-term project. You've got 120 million to spend. A transfer window where you spend 23 million on Enzo Lefebvre, 38 million on Artem Dovbyk, 30 million on Mati Sule, end up with Çelik and Saud as right backs, replace Spinazzola with Dal, and fail to spend 4 million on buying buying Llorente permanently, to then end up with Hermoso. That transfer window wants you to go down. That transfer window is a transfer window of a team that doesn't want to improve, doesn't know how to plant the seeds of a long-term project, doesn't know how to back a manager, and gives the keys of the decisions to people who don't know anything about this game and to a sporting director whose head is planted in France and only looks at the French league. This is what you have. There you go. The dish is served. The dish is served. The dish is served. And you know what I kept on saying at the start of the season? I don't have expectations because this team is weaker than what it was last year. Look, we are now 16th of December 2024. I was right. This team is weaker than what... So, not only did you fail to improve the team, but you actually managed to make it worse. Because this team is, on paper, weaker than what it was last year. Because Lukaku's better than Dovbyk. Because he knows this team, he knows this league better and knows how to score goals for fun in this league. Right backs last season, way better than this season in my opinion. Way better than this season. And last season it was absolutely terrible in the right backs. But number one, last season you had 3, this season you have 2. This season you have Çelik and Saud. Last year you had Korsdorp, Çelik and Christensen, who in games sometimes put his heart. In the right backs, you're weaker. In defence, Hummels compared to Smalling is an improvement, but Llorente and Hermoso is not an improvement. Llorente is way better. So mismatch, absolute mismatch. In the right, last season you had Angelino and Spinazzola. This year you replaced Spinazzola with Dal. You're weaker on the left as well. In the middle, Paredes stayed there. Look, in the midfield, it's probably the only position where I would say we're better because we've got Manu Kone, who's the best midfielder that we've had since maybe even Nainggolan. But in attack, you're worse. In attack, you're worse because Lukaku is better than Dovbyk. So you managed to be worse than what you were last year, and you are worse. You've got worse players, and you're a worse team. So what happened this summer in the transfer window is the epicenter of the disaster that we've made this season. It's the disaster. It's a disaster what you've made this summer. So going back to De Rossi, De Rossi was never backed in the summer window. People blame De Rossi. People blame De Rossi for... De Rossi is the reason we achieved these shit players. Number 2, in defense of De Rossi, because I'm here defending Daniele De Rossi. The one thing that I would say is De Rossi did not get backed whatsoever in the transfer window. De Rossi only got backed with Manu Kone and Mati Sule. Because if you remember well, use hindsight, use your power of reading news this summer. De Rossi wanted to keep Lukaku in the first place. So deciding not to keep Lukaku and buying Dovbyk. Okay, I'm not saying that De Rossi didn't want Dovbyk, but Dovbyk was not his priority at all. Keeping Lukaku was. Number 2, De Rossi wanted Chiesa. Did you buy any right winger? No, you didn't. Did you buy any left winger? No, you didn't. De Rossi wanted Bellanova at right back. You didn't buy a good quality right back. And he wanted Sule, which is why Sule is the only player out of the ones that we bought that I would say, apart from Kone of course, that I would say give him time. And I blame De Rossi for 2 things during his Roma experience. Number 1, Bove. The fact that we let Bove away this quick. Now, of course, with what happened with Bove right now, nobody would have ever known. I blame De Rossi for the Bove situation and not wanting to give value to him. And the second thing that I blame De Rossi for is not putting pressure on this board to getting the signings that he wanted done. Because our signings this summer were not only shit, but they were delayed as hell. Our transfer window literally was completed the 31st of August. On deadline day, we bought Kone, Hummels and Hermoso and Salamakers in the Tammy swap. More than half of the players that we bought happened the 31st of August. Is that normal? So, De Rossi, I blame De Rossi for not putting pressure on this board to get the signings done. And that's the problem with somebody who's inexperienced, somebody who starts with a managerial coach out of nowhere. You don't have the balls to go against the board. And adding on to this, the cherry on the cake, you sack him after 4 games. Counter, vice versa, because there are going to be people which go, it's De Rossi's problem if we're here because he wanted these players. De Rossi didn't want these players, number one. But if you strongly believe that De Rossi wanted these players, there's the other counter-argument that proves you wrong again if you blame De Rossi. Let's say De Rossi wanted all of these players, and you say the problem as to why we're here is because of these players, because these players are terrible, and because the manager who wanted it brought them here. If that's the case, then sacking De Rossi is another example of going, I don't know what you're doing. Because if he wanted these players, then it means that he needed time to build a project around these players. So, again, people who say De Rossi should have been sacked, De Rossi should have been sacked, the problem at this football club is the fact that De Rossi wasn't sacked earlier. You're all wrong. You're all wrong, and I'm not scared to say this. You are all wrong. You will not change my opinion, and you will not change the opinion of many other fans. Because you decided to start the project with Daniele De Rossi, and you got 30% of the players in the transfer window, the ones that he asked for, and you sacked them after 4 games. So people who say De Rossi was the problem are never going to pend on the correct side. You never will. Because sacking De Rossi is the trigger cause to why we're here right now, speaking about an absolute disaster. Speaking about a season which sees us having the same amount of points as games. Okay? So, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It will never be good enough. And it will never be it will never be forgiven. It will never be forgiven. It will never be forgiven. I will never forgive the owners for what they did to him and to us. Because they destroyed our season and his season as well with the decision of sacking him. I give this analogy every time because it's an analogy which makes you think. The day De Rossi was sacked, Raffaele Palladino had the same amount of points as him. Look at Fiorentina now. 3 points, 4 points, what? 5 points, 6 points off the top of the league table. A team like Fiorentina. So again, the past is a past. Nobody will change it. But unfortunately, it makes you think. It makes you think. It makes you think because it's this lack of organization and programming which it's where we are right now. And then of course the decision of backing let's say that the decision of sacking him was correct in a hypothetical world where De Rossi was correct to be sacked. You never have to replace him with Juric. You never have to replace him with Juric. And to put the cherry on the cake, Juric was chosen by a lady who 2 days after Juric was appointed, got dismissed. And that is as ironic as our season gets. And another thing about the transfer window and ultimately the team that we've built, right? Ask yourself this question. How many of the players that are in the current Roma squad start in any starting formation of our direct opponents? The answer is 1. Manu Kone. Only one. The only one. Maybe Hummels. In fact, no. Honestly, with all due honesty, all the players that we have, as of today, who starts in the teams of other current direct opponents? Kone, Zvilar, and possibly Hummels. The rest don't start. Which is why you never improve. Because you buy players who wouldn't even fit in Lazio's team, Milan's team, Juventus's team, Inter's team, no doubt, Napoli's team. So, this is a bad team. It's a poorly constructed team. And with that, I will read a few comments. Unfortunately, yesterday we played shit even without Cristante, Mancini, and Pellegrini. And Zalewski, we created so little against Como and gave them first clean sheet. This is the worst season in the history of Roma. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare indeed. One of the reasons we are shitty this season because we're a lot of experienced players like Rui, Lukaku, and Spina. I'm upset we lost, but we didn't play bad. We just couldn't finish. The team looked great in creating chances. Hats off to Como. Well, I can buy your argument for the first half, but the second half, I don't want to hear any Roma fans say that we played a good game in that second half. I don't remember Roma crossing the midfield line in the second half. And it's a mentality issue. Even you can see it, you concede a late goal, the way you conceded it, right? Your mentality is, I need to try and equalize the game with the 4 minutes of time that I've left. But instead, you lose 2-0. It's these players are mentally weak. These players are weak. These players are weak. The mentality is wrong with these players. Clear would be good for everyone. A breath of fresh air could actually save some careers. I think the players get too overconfident after a win and play so cool in the next game. I fully agree on that. That's what I said in yesterday's stream too. We need a manager who will step up and say in everyone's face, "You're shit and leave this club." In my opinion, I think the players get too overconfident. Oh yeah, we read that. The president sees that the problem is the manager. They didn't see that the players are good and can't get the best out of them because of the manager. That's it. What do you think about Misitano's 9 goals in 12 games? Should he be given a chance at least on the bench in the next few games? Yes, I'm all up for these decisions. Which is why I am not a fan of Fonseca, but I admire the courage he has. Yesterday, he started Camarda, Liberali. When the team isn't working, you need to try and find new solutions. So I don't think it would be a bad idea. Will you swap Tammy for Salamakers? Absolutely, yes. Salamakers is one of the few players that I would keep. How do I get notified when you start a live stream? Because I'm always late. I think press the bell button. Yeah, press the bell button. Chilik is an awful right back indeed. Again, I always tend to end these streams by looking at what's next. The truth is that I don't trust these players to analyze what's next. You know, I've been too fed up by these players that I ultimately expect nothing at the end of this season, because I don't expect anything from these players, because I don't trust these players, and I will never be tired of saying this. These players get you going after they win a game, but then they will get you back losing your head the following weekend when they lose a game. What's next is, look, I will say now, a season without European football can be beneficial, but I would absolutely hate it. I would fucking hate it, man. I would absolutely hate it. I would hate it because football is about the fans. Football is about, trying to go deep in as many competitions as you want. European prestige. Playing a season without Europe would be drastic on a fan point of view. It would absolutely kill me psychologically not playing European football for a season. I understand that it may be beneficial, but it would only be beneficial if you match it with proper decisions inside the club. If you lack programming and lack organization once again, and then have a season with no European football, it's going to be another wasted season because you're not going to win the league. and you're probably not going to get top four. So I agree. I agree with people who say I don't want Conference League. I don't. Um, because we've already won it, and it's the trophy which I want to win, but I've already won it. So I agree with people who say I'd rather get ninth than eighth and get Conference League. But part of me goes, I don't care. I want to play European football. I want to travel around for the club, explore new cities, explore new stadiums, and that's what every fan should want. So yeah, I think moving forward, as I said, you need to try your best. First of all, opinion in the league doesn't change. You need to get out of that situation as soon as possible because it's a dangerous situation. It's a very dangerous situation, very very dangerous. Remember in the season of the four managers, kind of a reflection season as the one that we're currently living, back where when De Rossi, Totti were there, they scraped relegation. They managed to scrape relegation in the second to last game week. This is another exact season. This is a season where the players don't understand, some fans don't understand that you have to be careful because the danger is alive of going down. Whether it will happen or not, it's alive and it's there. It's alive. It's biting you. So the first thing, of course, is get yourself out of there. But you've got the Europa League and the Coppa Italia to play for. I'm not in a position. We're not in a position to say, well, let's try and win them because we won't win them. Because these players won't win them. These players aren't capable. They don't have the mentality and the attitude to go far. But I certainly expect a change. I certainly expect maybe a spark in those two tournaments. We've got the game against Sampdoria in the first round of the Coppa Italia on Wednesday. A game that of course we have to win, and then if you qualify, you've got Milan in the second round. And then, if you qualify, you've got either Lazio or Inter. So, again, you've got better sides. I think to go further down in a competition, you need quality. You need confidence, something which we don't have right now. And unfortunately, the problem is exactly this. But we can't give up. We will never give up. And we've got a derby coming up as well, man. I really want this season to end. I want this season to end as I want the summer. I want the summer. I want this season to end aware that we're not going to get relegated, restarting from scratch, kicking everyone out, restarting with Ranieri and a good manager next to him, and then all the rest can absolutely piss off. This club needs to be in the hands of Claudio Ranieri and any manager who knows how to be a good manager. So, and the other thing which I would say is, players which we buy in January, players which we buy in this winter transfer window, they need to be connected to the next manager. Which is why what I'm saying is, another reason the season is going very bad. Use this to speed up your decisions. By mid-January, you already should know who the manager is because you need to start building the team. If you've got the January window and then don't back it with the manager, then we've got other players that the future manager won't want. So in January, it shouldn't be Ranieri who goes to the manager and say, I need this player for my system. It's Ranieri who goes, we've looked at this manager. This will be your new manager. He told us that he wants these players for June. We buy these players in June. So it's not Ranieri who should center the transfer window. It's the future manager which should shape it in January. And that is only how you improve the programming in the organization. If you start before, use these moments to start planning. With that being said, I'm going to go play tennis. Hit the like, subscribe, scan the QR code. There's a flash deal on Soccer Deal Shop. Top quality kits, a mystery box as well. 10% discount if you use the code Roma at checkout. And yeah, I'll catch you tomorrow with the Sampdoria match preview. And then on Wednesday, we've got another game. The rhythm is big. Rhythm won't stop. And so should these players don't stop. Love you. Bye-bye. Simo out.